Ice Shard Sorcerer is one of the strongest Sorcerer builds in Diablo 4, but I've been trying for a few days to try and change it, make it a little better, make it a little different, and I've discovered something that when you add Ice Blade and you do a certain few things to Ice Blade, this becomes one of the most fun, best builds I've ever played, and I have to share it. It has all the burst damage from the Ice Shard Ice Nova combo, but then it has incredible single target damage, and it has the fastest cooldowns I've ever seen on a Sorcerer build. The Ice Shard build is designed around popping a shield, teleporting into a group of mobs, freezing them, and then bursting them down in massive AoE damage. The only flaw is you're waiting on your stuff to come back to do the next big burst. With this build, there's no waiting. I'm clearing tier 4, 70 plus content, absolutely no problem, and I just have to talk about why this is so good. The reason the build is so powerful and so much fun is because you can break the Ice Blade mechanic. So Ice Blade has a natural cooldown of 16 seconds, but if you can get cooldown reduction, you can bring that really, really down. I've got it now at 9.7 seconds, which is really low. And in the skill tree, there's an ability that lets your Ice Blade's cooldown reduce by 0.5 seconds per hit on a vulnerable enemy, combined with another skill point which says that cooldown reduction is shared with your other abilities. But the end result is you have 5 Ice Blades pretty much up, attacking all the different enemies and all on a boss, and then your cooldowns are just coming back so fast. You pop a shield, it comes back off cooldown really fast. You teleport and Frost Nova a pack. By the time you get to the next pack, your Frost Nova's back up. So let's go over how to make this build work, starting first with the stats. The best stats to make this work and what you should be looking for. Number 1, this is key, it's cooldown reduction. You should take this over everything, every time. Cooldown reduction can come on the headpiece, the amulet, and your offhand weapon. In fact, the offhand weapon, it can proc twice. You get it natively on the weapon, and then you can get it again on the bit underneath that you can roll for. So yeah, you should be really looking for this. In tier 4, you can get up to like 40% cooldown reduction. The next thing I'd look for would probably be damage. So frost damage, damage to vulnerable enemies, damage to close enemies, all that kind of thing. And then I'd go for ranks in your main abilities. So ranks in Frost Nova, ranks in Ice Shard, Ice Blades, anything like that. They're the big ones. And then just go for things like movement speed, crit chance, intelligence, that kind of stuff. But the big ones are that's like the priority I'd be looking for stuff. And then barrier generation is really helpful as well. Okay, off from the stats and onto the uniques that you should be looking for. You don't need any specific uniques to make this work, but there's 2 that are really good. The first one is really, really good for making more damage, and the second one's just nice to have. So the first one, Ice Heart Brace. This means that when something dies and when frozen, it will trigger an Ice Nova, which is huge because it will trigger more freezers, and your damage will ramp up significantly once you get this unique. The next one would be Raiment of the Infinite, the chess piece. This lets you teleport, and when you teleport, you pull enemies into you. I'd probably recommend this on every single Sorcerer build, so don't worry about it. It's just really, really nice to have everything grouped up for AoE damage. But again, this one is definitely not required. Okay, now onto the aspects. You want to be looking for 2 things here. Things that improve your damage, your ice damage, your ice shard damage, your damage to frozen targets, and then things that either give you a barrier or give you more damage while you have a barrier. Sorcerers are squishy, we're teleporting into big packs of elites, and all we really have is 1 barrier from our ice armor. So I try and look for as much barrier as you can get. The ones I would go for would be under the ice damagey ones, I'd go for Aspect of Control to deal more damage to frozen enemies, the Aspect of Piercing Cold to give your ice shards piercing damage. And then I'd start getting all these barrier ones. So Aspect of the Protector, so when you damage an elite enemy, you get a barrier for 10 seconds. The Ever Living aspect, you take less damage from vulnerable enemies. Storm Swell aspect, you deal a percentage of more damage to vulnerable enemies when you have a barrier. You'll have a barrier most of the time. And then the Conceited aspect increases damage when you have a barrier active. There's loads of other aspects out there, so feel free to try them as you want. And you don't need all 6 of these, especially if you're building this in tier 2 or tier 3 while you're leveling. But having most of these will make the build feel crazy strong, even in tier 4. Okay, now onto the enhancements, the enhanced spells. Now we're going to get into the big detail, the juice of the build, why this feels so busted, why it's so fun. First up, we take Ice Shards. Ice Shards automatically fly at your enemies. That's huge. It means if you get in close, you freeze enemies, you will then auto-shoot these ice lances at everybody around you, meaning you'll be doing a ton of passive damage when things around you are frozen. And things will always be frozen because we'll have Ice Shard off cooldown a lot of the time. Okay, so now for the key part. This is the secret sauce. Ice Blades. You want to put Ice Blade as your second enhancement. Every 40 seconds, or 33 seconds with a certain Paragon point I'm going to show you, every 33 seconds of cooldowns used will summon an Ice Blade passively. This means if you pop your normal spells, say you go Ice Armor, you teleport in, you Frost Nova, then that's like 40 seconds of cooldowns. So you'll summon an Ice Blade. If you Deep Freeze, that's got a cooldown of about 40 seconds on its own. So that'll summon another Ice Blade. So just playing your class naturally will summon a ton of Ice Blades all around you. And when we combine this on our hotbar, we can summon them ourselves too every 10 seconds. Add in the fact that that's reducing the cooldowns as well. It just escalates. It just snowballs. you know, ice reference. Okay, the skill tree, right? The meat and potatoes, the skill tree. You want to take Frostbolt, and then you want to take Enhanced Frostbolt for no reason. We don't use this, but you have to take something in this first section, and there's nothing really for this build in the first section. Okay, down to the core skills. Ice Shards, max that. That's our main damage. Then we take Enhanced Ice Shards to get the Ricochet, which is really important for the clustered of AoE damage we're going to be doing. Then Greater Ice Shards. We take the Greater one because it makes enemies act frozen if we have a barrier. And we're going to play hard on the barriers. We're going to have barriers on most of the time. Okay, in the defensives, they look like there's a lot of points here, but that's just because I got a piece of gear that's giving +1 to all, so don't worry about that. You only want to take 1 point in Teleport, and then Enhanced, and then Shimmering. You take Shimmer and Teleport for the damage reduction, so that when you get into this big pack of enemies, you get a little damage reduction, so that first hit doesn't go in. Then 1 in Ice Armor, and then Enhanced Ice Armor for mana regain, and then Mystical, which gives us more barrier for damage against vulnerable targets, and pretty much everything around us will be vulnerable all the time because we're going to be Frost Nova in it. Okay, then for Frost Nova, we 5 out of 5 this. That's very important. I've seen some builds on YouTube say, oh, we just put 1 point in here because there's no damage on this. We just use it to freeze them. But I guess what not everyone realizes is that unlike most skills in here, Frost Nova's cooldown actually reduces the more points you put in it. So you can see with all my cooldown reduction gear, it goes from 14 seconds to 11.5 if you 5 out of 5 it. So yeah, that's big. And then with the Ice Blades, we'll get this cooldown down even faster in combat because, you know, we have all these things that bring the cooldowns down. So yeah, then we go into Enhanced and then Mystical because that makes enemies vulnerable. And loads of stuff here relies on Vulnerable, and Vulnerable is just a great mechanic in general for scaling your damage up. Also, you want to max the passive here, Glass Cannon, for 18% more damage. It's huge. Okay, now the fun stuff, Conjuration. Why this build is so unique. Conjuration. You want to put points into Ice Blade, max out Ice Blades for the damage, and then take Enhanced, which reduces the cooldown of Ice Blades every time it hits a vulnerable enemy. You see where it's all coming together, which is why the build feels so broken. And then finally, Summoned Ice Blade. So all these cooldown reductions now spread a % of it to your other skills. You want a 3 out of 3 Conjuration Mastery, as this is a 3% per Conjuration you have. I normally get about 5 Ice Blades up in a fight, so this again is huge. And then Align the Elements and Mana Shield, which is really, really helpful. If you're dying a lot and you're struggling, or you're still trying to get this to work, you can drop 3 points from Ice Blades and then put them into Protection, but that's up to you. On the Mastery skills, we take nothing. Again, if you're struggling, I would take points out of Ice Blade and put them into Icy Veil for more barriers. I'm still tempted to do that. I'm still tempted to drop Ice Blades and mix them around into more barriers, because the damage you lose in the Ice Blades, you get back from the aspect that's like, if you got a barrier, do more damage, and this gives you more barrier. So I'm tempted to try that and keep switching them around. But for now, I've got Ice Blades maxed and it's working in tier 4. Okay, the ultimates. We take Deep Freeze. I really didn't like Deep Freeze at first because I don't think I fully understood it, but man, does it work well in this build. You want to take it, and then you take Prime Deep Freeze. That means that when your Deep Freeze ends, you get a barrier. You already know if you're following along, that's amazing. And then Supreme Deep Freeze. This is really, really exciting because this reduces the cooldown of everything else by 50%, which is bonkers. The beauty of Deep Freeze is you can press it and you don't have to wait that 4 seconds. You can press it and then press it again straight after and cancel the Deep Freeze. So let's say everything's on cooldown. You press Deep Freeze, press it again, everything drops 50% of its cooldown. That is huge. You can drop like 7+ seconds off of certain abilities. So yeah, the play here is you pop shield, you teleport in, you freeze everything around you, that summons an Ice Blade, you use all these cooldowns, you summon a second Ice Blade, then you pop Deep Freeze, and that summons a third Ice Blade. This is going to 50% cooldown reduce everything. The Ice Blades that are already up, the 3 you've got, are going to start attacking and reducing your other cooldowns. Your spells will start coming back off cooldown, you'll start using them again, you'll summon more Ice Blades, and it's incredible. It feels so good. Okay, onto the passives. The Ice passives, max them all out. Just the 12 points, drop it all. They're amazing for Ice abilities, and we have all Ice abilities other than Teleport. And then for key passives, it's a choice. If you've got tons of mana, if you've got tons of mana reduction gear, Shatter will do a lot of damage. But I personally prefer Avalanche. I really like Avalanche. And there is an aspect. Is there an? Yeah, there's an aspect which lets Avalanche proc twice. I really, really like Avalanche. I think it's great. It gives you a 10% chance to deal 40% more damage, doubled on vulnerable enemies. Everything's going to be vulnerable in our world. So yeah, and it does that for 0 mana. So yeah, I really like Avalanche, but I have seen a lot of people run the Ice build with Shatter. So your choice. But yeah, that's the skill tree. That's the skill tree. Okay, and there's also some important things to get on the Paragon board as well. So let's not forget that, the Paragon board. So if you're new, if you haven't got to 50 yet, the Paragon board unlocks at 50, and it's a place where you get like, I think you get like 4 skill points per level to start expanding further and get new buffs and abilities. And they start out kind of weak, like +5 intelligence, +5 strength, but there's some really good things as you progress down. Once you get to the end of the board, there's a gate, you click the gate and you get to put a new board down. And there's a choice of boards. So here's the sort of the boards that you should be taking and the reasons why, like what's on these boards. So the first board I would take would be Enchantment Master. This is slept on. I don't see many people take this. You want to take Enchantment Master. It makes your enchantments 20% stronger. So where we take Ice Blades, and it means that every 40 seconds of cooldowns we use, we summon an Ice Blade. Yeah, so that comes down from 40 to 33. So that's the first board I'd go down to get that legendary node. Second board I'd probably go down would be Frigid Fate. Dealing cold damage to vulnerable enemies increases your lucky hit chance. That's really helpful. And then I'd probably go on to Icefall, that board. Killing a frozen enemy gives you a 15% of your max life as a barrier. Yeah, they're like the 3 boards I'd be looking for first for the stats on them, the legendaries that you want to take. There's stats everywhere. You can make the Paragon board however you want, but I just sort of head for those 3 legendaries as a priority and pick up all the different things you want along the way. Another thing on the Paragon boards is these red circles are where you can place glyphs. So when you complete Nightmare Dungeons after level 50, you'll get glyphs at the end and you can level the glyphs up. So the glyphs I'd be looking for to place in these big red circles would be Conjurer. So to get the requirements on Conjurer, this will mean your conjuration skills have a 20% increased duration. And the way this snowballs, the more we have up, the better things go. So yeah, that's a really, really good one. Another one I'd go for would be Territorial, which deals increased damage to close targets. That's amazing. I'd go for Control, which gives you 20% increased damage against frozen enemies, which again is really, really good. And then because we're playing so much into vulnerable, I would take Exploit as well. So that's, damage is increased against vulnerable enemies and it scales really high. So yeah, they're the ones I'd go with. Yeah, that's how I'd build this out, and that's how I am building it out, and it's going really well. It's feeling really fun. So yeah, I'm probably going to wrap it up here. I hope this has helped. This is an incredible change to the Ice Shard build. I am loving it, and I'd love to know what you think in the comments if you tried it. I know that Ice Blades were really strong before release, and they got a little nerf, but I think with this, they have a really good use again. But yeah, if this has helped and you like the video, liking it helps me out. Let me know down below what you think. If you're going to try it, if you tried it, if your thoughts on the video, that would really, really, really help. And if you want to subscribe for more builds and guides on Diablo 4, that would mean a lot too. Also, if there's any area of this you want explaining more, either maybe, I don't know, a full video explaining the Paragon board, it just in general, or if you'd want certain areas of these guide videos to be longer, let me know, because I'm eating, sleeping and breathing Diablo 4. I could probably talk about every build for an hour, but I want to make it not too confusing. I want to make it understandable for people who are brand new and just got the game and are looking to try a new build, and then have enough information for someone who's at end game and wants to try a new build. So I'm trying to make it a balance, but if there's a certain area you want more depth on, let me know and I'll try and beef it out more in the future videos. But yeah, I'll wrap it up here. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.